I'm going to run for President of the United States because as a young mom, I will fight for your children as hard as I would fight for my own. I believe we need to start rewarding work in this country again, because anybody who wants to work hard should be able to get whatever training they need to earn their way into the middle class and to be able to have the American dream.
It's official. New York Senator Kristen Gillibrand is running for president. Good evening and welcome to MetroFocus. I'm Jenna Flanagan. The junior senator from New York first made the announcement last night on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and will now join an increasingly crowded field seeking to challenge President Trump in 2020, a field that already includes Elizabeth Warren and Julian Castro, among others. Gillibrand plans to travel to Iowa later this week, Iowa, of course, being the first major contest of the primary season. The senator has a lot of money in the bank, but can she rise to the top of a field that could include more than a dozen candidates? Joining us now with analysis of Gillibrand's chances, as well as a breakdown of Governor Andrew Cuomo's State of the State and budget address, is Jarrett Murphy, executive editor of City Limits. Jarrett, welcome to the program. So, Jarrett, she's definitely in the race. First, give me your take on Senator Gillibrand's actual chances, especially getting to the race so early.
Well, I think getting in early helps. I mean, we are anticipating it to be a very crowded field. You've mentioned a few of the names, a lot of other names kind of waiting in the wings. I think that the fact that there are so many folks running and the fact that it's such a kind of unsettled political environment means who's to say about her chances? I mean, she is a, sitting U.S. Senator. She, I think, was appointed just about 10 years to the day to the seat formerly held by Hillary Clinton. She does have a fair amount of money. She has some national profile on women's issues, including sexual assault of women in the military and paid family leave. She took early stances about Senator Al Franken and his misbehavior. She even took on the former President Clinton and disparaged his behavior after the fact. So she has a name and she has a platform. It's going to be a difficult race for people to try to harness a consensus within the party. But if she has the money to stick around and see some of the other dominoes fall, who knows?
Well, there's so many more people to come into this race, so we'll just wait and see what happens there. But moving on to the state, we just saw the governor give his State of the State address. He seemed to be almost announcing a new New York. This was a very different tone change for him. It
was. Well, there's been an evolution. If you were to look back to back, it'd be a lot of viewing. Andrew Cuomo's State of the State / budget addresses over the years, it's been a steady move from kind of a managerial, centrist vision of the state, fixing problems, very nose to the grindstone, to this more sweeping, progressive vision. We saw that especially last year ahead of his re-election campaign, and it really was solidified this year. We've actually heard him talk a lot recently. I mean, he's the governor, so that's okay. But he ran for re-elections. There was talking there. He gave a first 100 days speech in December, which was odd. Obviously had his inauguration on New Year's Day, and now this. So there wasn't a lot of news in terms of policy proposals, but how he framed it, how he tried to tie the progressive wave to his traditional pragmatism, quoting his father about how people run in poetry and govern in prose. He's used about every other quote that Mario has on that. And then having this kind of soaring portion at the end, talking about the national political climate, disregard for immigrants, xenophobia, and trying to kind of cast a more spiritual, emotional appeal around a different vision of America.
Well, of course, even though neither man has made any sort of indication as to what they plan on doing, but I do have to ask how the governor's address compares to the mayor's speech, because both of them have been banted around as possible contenders for at least something in 2020, and they both gave these very progressive yet very local speeches.
Yes, well, they're fascinating characters on their own, and obviously their relationship is also very interesting. The mayor's speech previous week was really interesting because Mayor de Blasio has always been the more progressive of the two. If anything, Cuomo has kind of moved closer toward him. De Blasio's speech was fascinating because he took a progressive agenda and wedded it to this idea of what's the purpose of government. And basically his answer is the purpose of government is to improve and increase our happiness, which is an idea that a lot of European countries have embraced. It obviously is potentially controversial, it's problematic, but that was his explanation kind of for the rationale behind increasing healthcare access, mandating paid leave, giving people access to retirement benefits if they don't get it through work, is that it's government's job to increase our happiness. That's an ambitious target to set. Whether his plans would ever get us there, I don't know. But he definitely is charting territory the governor hasn't. He just doesn't have the same power to kind of present a broad set of policy answers to get there.
Well, speaking of increasing our happiness, there's definitely a lot that was in the governor's address that might speak to that. Of course, a lot of people are going to be talking about what looks like the potential legalization of marijuana use.
He was very, very skeptical of it a few years ago. Had to impanel a commission to look into it. And now he is there, wants to legalize adult use of cannabis, prevent its use by children. In fact, he also wants to raise the state's tobacco smoking age from 18 to 21. Interestingly, he called for the sealing of some arrest records, people who were arrested under the old law. There's a little pushback in the 24 hours since from criminal justice advocates who would prefer to see an expungement, which is a more effective removal of those from the record. Cuomo has pushed left in terms of his own history, but there are people who will be pushing him further, and it's going to dial down on details like, do you seal or expunge convictions under old age marijuana laws?
For myself, I thought what was most interesting was the governor's announcement of nobody knows who's in charge of the MTA. So that was really
who
sort
has
of
the keys.
Yeah, but what's your take on that?
It's a fascinating tact for the governor to take after having, celebrated the opening of the 2nd Avenue subway and presided over the MTA now for going into his 9th year, to suddenly realize that the leadership structure doesn't work. I think there's a point in there. It is an odd structure. Accountability is somewhat diffuse. The fact that this comes up now when he wants to once again force the city to pay half of the capital plan going forward, when he has come up with this last-minute L train plan, which has kind of thrown everyone for a loop, even though it might be a legitimate idea, is fascinating. And it's interesting whether it's a critique that could also be applied to all the other authorities that hold vast power in New York State. The Port Authority, the Dormitory Authority. There are a lot of different places that have the same kind of structure that the government, so far anyway, has not complained about. Maybe that'll be the topic for next year.
Well, there's so much more to keep an eye out on. Listen, I want to thank you so much for joining us and at least giving us some context for what we saw from the governor, from the mayor, and these new policy proposals.
My pleasure. Remember, you have the right to be happy.
Oh, thank you.